Good morning. Morning has broken and we are your consecrated hosts. I'm Father Jeff. I've been consecrated by holy orders.
I'm Jonathan. I've been consecrated by baptism.
It's Thanksgiving week.
It is Thanksgiving week.
But we're not going to talk about Thanksgiving today. That's tomorrow. Jonathan,
we don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Hold on to that hot take of yours.
It is ready. I've added some things to it.
Oh dear Lord. All right. Can't wait.
It's good.
I've been trying to think and guess what it is that you have that is a controversial Thanksgiving opinion. Hopefully it's not something like you shouldn't eat turkey on Thanksgiving. That's too on the nose.
It's not anything about shouldn't eat turkey or shouldn't eat anything.
All right. Very good. Well, then we will get to Thanksgiving. Tomorrow will be our Thanksgiving show. It's going to be a short week all. Today's Tuesday, the 24th. Tomorrow we'll have our normal show. And then we're going to take our little Thanksgiving Day break on Thanksgiving and Friday after. So there will only be these two shows, today and tomorrow, for your viewing pleasure.
Womp womp. It's my dad's birthday.
Today?
Today.
Another birthday in the Sanchez Hidalgo household, extended family.
What's funny is there's really only a few in the fall. It's mine, Joshua's, my dad's, and I guess my stepmom is in December as well. So, but you make it seem like they're all lumped together.
It seems like that's all we ever talk about.
Because my birthday needs to be celebrated for a long time.
We celebrate your birthday, Jonathan.
We're only 10 months away.
Speaking of which, we're only 1 month away from Christmas Eve. Oh my gosh, where did that go? Oh.
Before Christmas Eve.
We got Advent.
That's
what we're going to spend a little time talking about today.
Because before we see that, after this weekend, Advent starts.
We just finished Christ the King. So this past weekend, if you went to Mass or live streamed the Mass, you saw the celebration of Christ the King. We kind of left the green behind and went into whites and golds for the celebration of Christ the King. Just really a recognition that Christ is the Savior of the nations, not any kind of earthly king or earthly president or earthly power or anything like that the world cannot be saved. But at the same time, the world needs to be concerned about the things of Christ, because ultimately that's how we're going to be judged.
Yeah.
You know, that gospel that we heard this weekend it always strikes me that when Christ gathers the nations before him and separates them as sheep and goats, it doesn't say he gathered the peoples of the nations before him. He gathered the nations before him and separated them as sheep and goats. So that principle of solidarity really stands out, that you sink or swim together. So what are you doing to change the culture of your community?
Holy smokes.
I know, we can't just say, well, I'm good, I've done my bit, I'm in a good relationship with Jesus Christ, just because everyone else is. Well, sucks to be them.
I really hope.
That's not it. It's, as we've said before, the Catholic principle here is not me and Jesus, it is we and Jesus.
So it could at least be like our parish boundaries, then it goes to our diocese.
It's the whole
thing.
Shebang.
Because you can't have one without the other. It's all connected.
We're all connected. Solidarity. Adam's sin brought us all down.
Thanks, Adam.
Christ's resurrection brought us all up.
Praise you, Jesus.
So we celebrate Christ the King. So that kind of brings everything together. So here's your word for the day, Jonathan. And we just talked about subsidiarity. But we've talked about that before when we were going through the moral tradition of the church. The word for the day is soteriology.
Soteriology.
Soteriology. Can you say soteriology?
Soteriology.
Very good. Do you know what soteriology is? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to.
I don't believe I've ever heard of the
put you on the
word.
spot.
So I probably know what it is, but never heard it referenced as soteriology. That's my guess.
Well, ology, it's definitely the study of something.
And soter.
Exactly. It's the study of salvation. So soteriology is the theology around salvation. So again, the Catholic principle of being saved is not just kind of the one and done moment. Like, Jesus died on the cross and rose again, and if we just give ourselves to him, we're going to be good. Well, yes, and there's always an and that comes after that with Christ, salvation is unfolding. And it's going somewhere. That Jesus died and rose again so that we, when we die, will rise again.
Right.
So soteriology is really like, what is the goal of salvation? Like, how does it unfold, and where is it going, and where are we in that process?
Because we are in that process.
It is a process, not an event.
We are a part of salvation history.
We are being saved, and hopefully we are participating in the salvation of others. These are things. So soteriology is kind of this is the idea that brings the end and the beginning together. That we end the year with Christ the King, looking forward to his triumphant, glorious return when he will gather the nations, blah blah blah, like we were talking about. And then when we start Advent, the very beginning of our salvation history again in our church year, the beginning of Advent really looks forward to the second coming of Christ.
So we're not supposed to just be thinking about the birth of Jesus?
Not at first. And that's, I think, that while Advent is a 4-week preparatory period for the celebration of Christmas, which is the birth of Christ, it really has a dual thing. Two concepts come together. The two comings of Christ. So Advent, the word Advent means an arrival, a coming. The advent of our King, that Advent hymn, the advent of our King, ba 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 ba, the advent of our King, the coming of our King. So the season of Advent is quite literally the season of coming. That there is a coming. And what is that? What is coming? Who is coming? Jesus is coming! Good job, Jonathan. You get a star.
Who is Jesus? Christ the King.
Christ the King. And he is coming to return. So we start Advent by focusing on his second coming. We just kind of, that's where our attention has been with Christ the King. And now we are shifting it towards the second coming and really getting ourselves ready in the darkness in the end of this year when everything is coming to its end. Because these days now are getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and they will continue to get shorter and shorter and shorter all the way until the few days before Christmas.
What if you live in the Southern Hemisphere?
That we don't live in the Southern Hemisphere. It's backwards then, but this was St. Augustine's thing. This is not my thing.
Okay.
St. Augustine talked about this, but he also lived in the Northern Hemisphere.
But it makes sense that we have this time of preparation. If it was just celebrating the birth of Jesus, which is the most important part of, most significant event in human history, is God became man.
Yep.
So it would make sense to do that anyways, but it makes even more sense if we're preparing for a second coming. There's still more to come.
The first coming has already happened. So if we're spending all of our time preparing for his first coming, we've missed the boat by 2,000 years. You're just a little behind.
Whoops.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing we ought to be preparing for is where we are now. What is the present moment? And we are preparing for Christ's glorious coming. And so the first 3 weeks of Advent really are about that. So you're going to hear the Gospels of John the Baptist, prepare ye the way for the coming of the Messiah. We're going to hear all of this preparatory stuff about, the end times and getting ready for the final judgment and being ready for that day of wrath and whatnot. And then the fourth Sunday of Advent, the Gospel shifts dramatically to the stories of the Annunciation and the Visitation and the preparation for the birth of Christ. So really Advent is 3 weeks of preparing for the second coming and then 1 week and saying, oh, Christmas is upon us, let's focus on that for a while. So those last 7 days, December 17th and on, really are a privileged place in the season of Advent, and they are the focus, the preparation for Christmas itself.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I think if we thought of it that way, I mean, so this year my wife took part in a Jesse tree ornament decorating thing.
Yeah.
So they all bought these wooden things,
Okay.
like medallions.
Yep.
And each one had a different person of the Jesse tree or different events
Cool.
of the Jesse tree. And I had to paint them. And they did 29 of them. And what the Jesse tree does is actually takes you through salvation history up to the birth of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Because that makes sense.
Soteriology.
Yes.
The story of salvation.
And so you are preparing for, like, the significance of Jesus wouldn't have been as significant if all of that hadn't happened beforehand.
Right.
And
Right.
so, because yes, anybody can come down and say they are God. Many people have. But this has the lineage and everything, and it's beautiful to study upon that. And then we have the opportunity to reflect on, okay, now that Jesus is born, yes, the battle's been won, everything is good, but he's coming back.
Yes.
And to put our mind frame in that of, well, shoot, how can I reflect on my life? And what can I do to
It was
grow?
very Texan of you all of a sudden. Well, shoot. How am I going to do this?
But that, and if we focus Advent like that,
Yes.
instead of just like this somber time to get ready for Jesus, because a lot of times I think that there's that disconnect. We already set up all of our Christmas trees and decorations and everything else, and
Right after
it's an
Halloween.
exciting time.
November 1st came along and all the Christmas trees were up.
Inflatables and everything.
Yeah, crazy.
But it's usually more of a time of anticipation, but exciting anticipation instead of like reflection of, am I ready for the coming of Christ? Because I would venture to say most people, most days, are not.
That might be true. I guess I've never thought of that. Yeah. I would hope, my hope, especially as a pastor, is that most people, most days, are ready to cash it in, to die, to say, okay, you want to take me now? I am ready to go. I am reconciled. I am at peace with God and my neighbor. I have my faith that is strong and solid. I have charitable works that have clothed me in my white wedding garment. I am ready, Lord, when you call me. That's what I would hope.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about it someday. Last
day.
week, I think. We don't want to be... Maybe it was in a meeting I was in. It was in a meeting I was in.
We didn't talk about it.
We did not talk about this. But we don't want to be caught on that day with like the parable of the talents and everything else. Like, oops, I wish I could have done more.
I was waiting before I did this.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing is we oftentimes put it, leave for tomorrow what can be done today.
Exactly. That procrastination, and I'm a procrastinator, but...
And so Advent is that time to just say, hey, wake up.
Exactly.
Jesus is coming.
So that being the case, practical things then that we do. How do we spiritually, how do we, get ready? How do we enter into Advent? You've got now a week to kind of get yourself ready for Advent because, as we said, Advent begins on this coming Sunday. Everything will change in church to the violets.
I'll be wearing my purple shirt.
There you go. Because that purple is that, not only is it a royal color, again, kind of building off of Christ the King. So there's a royalty attached to purple. But purple is also a somber color. If you're dealing with the King, you're not dealing with, just flippancy and casualness. And there's a somberness related to it. And so it's often attached to a penitential time. So the sacrament of confession, Lent, Advent, these are penitential times. There is a somberness to them. And it also kind of ties to that, the irony of Christ on the road, when he was being condemned, that the soldiers mocked him as a king by clothing him in a purple garment.
Right.
And they'd put a purple robe upon him. And so that purple, while it is attached to royalty, it really reminds us of that time when Christ was clothed and mocked for being a king. So there's a sorrow in that recognition of Christ as king, because we were bad at that point.
If you haven't taken notice, the stole that Father Jeff or any priest wears when doing confession is purple.
Yep, it's purple. That penance, but also the royal ability to alleviate that sin, to unlock the door and say, be free of that. So there's a power in that, but there is also the somberness of that. Oh my gosh.
The symbolism and...
it's crazy. It's crazy good.
Yeah, the Catholic Church, Jesus' church just does so much. It's a beautiful thing.
So that color violet you'll begin seeing, and the flowers will be stripped from the altars. That during Advent there are no flower decorations, so you might see evergreens, a sign of life, a sign of hope, and particularly in the Advent wreath. Mm-hmm. So the Advent wreath is not just something that is in church. You are encouraged to have an Advent wreath even in your own home. The dining room table is a good place to have that, or your kitchen table, wherever you gather as a family for meals, that might be a nice place to put the wreath in the center, or maybe in the living room on the coffee table, if that's where your family gathers, whatever. But that there is a place where that can happen. And an Advent wreath doesn't have to be ornate. I mean, you can get little Advent wreath kits. You can even buy like the candles and the rings and the wreaths at Hobby Lobby, or other stores like that, where they come all together as a 4-pack of candles. Traditionally, the circle evergreen wreath is a symbol of eternity, the round shape of that, and life, eternal life. That even in this season in the Northern Hemisphere of dead and darkness and dying, well, the Advent wreath comes out of the Northern Hemisphere, so this is, it's a response to that. That there's that which does not die. And so the wreath itself is a symbol of God. And then there are the 4 candles that kind of stand as those 4 weeks of Advent, the 4 weeks leading up to the birth of Christ. Traditionally, at least in the United States, those are, there's really 4 different ways you can do your Advent wreath. The German tradition is to have 4 red candles.
Oh.
4 red candles around the wreath. That is the German tradition. You can also have, because the liturgical color for Advent is violet, 4 violet candles on the Advent wreath. More common, however, is the 3 violet candles and the 1 rose-colored candle. Rose-colored candle. Violet and rose, not purple and pink. Violet and rose, so that 1 rose candle, and then alternately 4 white candles. So, get yourself a wreath, real or fake. You can, if you want to decorate it with little berries or ribbons or whatever, to make it pretty. And then 4 candles upon there. And those are lit then each Sunday. We light a different candle. And the idea is that we're moving from darkness to light. That we're seeing the Lord coming. And so again, if we think about the second coming, and you're standing there staring at the darkness, looking into the east where the sun is going to rise, and then all of a sudden you start to see the light slowly come up. The first, second, third, fourth
Catholic
candle.
Imagery.
There it is.
So rich.
That rose candle is not the 4th candle. I know some people thinking like, it's 1, 2, 3 violet candles, and then the rose candle because we're getting close to Christmas. Yay! No. The rose candle is the 3rd week of Advent. And here's why. Light the first candle, week of Advent. Light the second candle, week of Advent. So we have 2 weeks of Advent. Light the 3rd candle, week of Advent. Light the 4th candle, week of Advent. We have 1, 2 weeks of Advent. So this rose candle stands exactly in the middle of the 2 weeks. So it really is the center point. And so as we cross over the center, if you crest the hill, all of a sudden you see things more clearly. You see the sun, that color rose before the sun rises but isn't quite there. That's why that candle is rose. It's the midpoint. It's the, yay, we're almost there. But we still have a ways to go.
Yeah.
So that's when you light your candles. A lot of people in the bulletin this coming Sunday, the front cover of the bulletin has an at-home blessing for your Advent wreath, so that as a family you can gather together and bless your own Advent wreath.
Does that stop my kids from fighting over who gets to blow them out at the end of dinner?
They can do it together.
Good luck with that.
Or you draw lots.
Draw lots.
Take turns. Dad gets to do it first, then Mom.
We'll see. Now they're a year older. Hopefully it's a little bit more peaceful.
Well, once they get those 2 candles, they can each blow out 1.
That's true.
That makes it a little easier. Yeah, exactly. So the Advent wreath is probably, one of those big symbols.
Yeah.
You talked about the Jesse tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes out of that Isaiah's prophecy. From the stump or from the shoot of Jesse, there will be a blossom. That for the root of Jesse, the stump of Jesse, the tree of Jesse, however it's translated, that there will be this blossom that comes out of there.
Yeah.
And so Jesse was the father of King David. And it is of David's lineage that the Messiah is going to come to be the new David, the new king. So that Jesse tree. Have you ever done a Jesse tree?
I did one back in grade school, maybe 5th or 6th grade. We kind of did one. Each person, each student had their thing
Sure.
that they had to bring. Kind of like my wife did. So this year we're getting into, my kids are finally getting old enough that we can read the stories. The thing came with a booklet. Then I got a different book because I didn't realize it came with a booklet. And so the Catholic All Year book that I've showed you around the office. So Kendra Tierney. I'll post the book here.
Sure.
Because it's a really cool
things to do at home.
Yeah, it's things to do at home, and it has a picture for every day and a symbol for every day.
Okay.
And then each picture, you get a big picture on the day. On the last day, it puts all of them together, and it makes a beautiful big picture.
Huh.
And so it was just a really creative way to see how it all goes together.
Yeah.
Even though they're all individual pieces, and it comes with the scripture that goes with each one of them.
I did a Jesse tree when I was in college seminary, kind of as a daily meditation when I was in charge of the liturgy in college seminary. So in the entryway we had a tree, and I would put the new ornament on the tree every day with a reflection, next to it. And so I still have those ornaments. So what we might do here is we might put a tree here and add our ornament for each morning show, and the days that we missed we can add those too and kind of make our own Advent journey.
That would be great. I know we're going to do that at home. We got a tree specifically for a Jesse tree. So.
And you can use an evergreen tree. Sometimes they use just branch. If you go break a branch off, and it's that branch that just all of a sudden comes to color and light and everything, because as it goes. It's kind of like starts as the Charlie Brown little tree, and then it fills up with all kinds of color, and there's no one version of the Jesse tree.
There's so many.
So it's not like, if you have one and your neighbor has one, you're talking to someone else and they're like, oh, the first ornament on our tree was the globe because the creation of the world. And it's like, that's not where my tree started. My tree started with the hand of God, as whatever, or
a stump.
Yeah, or starts with Jesse, the stump. So it, so they're going to be different. There's no one right way, because it's just a way to trace salvation history.
Yeah. And
Advent, as you know, isn't a full 4 weeks most of the time. So a number of the ornaments at the end, again, this is where that December 17th to 24th comes in. As you're working through the Jesse tree, once December 17th comes, those other ornaments kind of disappear, and all of these last ones come and take their place. So you kind of have to, fiddle with it.
So the physical ones, we have 29 ornaments.
Yep.
The book that I got has only 25 days because it actually starts on December 1st to avoid any of the other stuff. And so, there is no one Jesse tree.
Right. So that might be something to put out in our bulletin too, because I think I still have a resource where people could just do their own Jesse tree. And I give a list of scriptures, because that's part of what you do too. You put the ornament on, you read the scripture that accompanies that, so it's a walking through the Word of God until the Word is made flesh, and you put the little baby Jesus in the manger. So Jonathan, let me ask you a charged question.
All right.
Here we go. Do you decorate for Christmas before December 24th in your house?
Yes.
The Advent Nazis would be knocking on your door to tear it all down.
Yeah, because I don't know how that tradition even started. Because here in the United States, because we have Thanksgiving, for many families, you start decorating the day after Thanksgiving or the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. That was our tradition growing up. We would have Thanksgiving, we would have our dinner at noon-ish, and then once that was all cleaned up and put away, and then we didn't have too many people over, when they left, then in the middle of the afternoon, we'd start digging out the Christmas ornaments, and we spent the afternoon on Thanksgiving getting everything ready for Christmas. Or the day after. That became, once we started doing Thanksgiving dinner more later, then we would do the decorating on Friday. So that was always the way we did it in my house.
But I guess technically you're not supposed to.
Supposed to. So I get this question a lot. It's like, well, can I, is it appropriate for us to decorate our homes for Christmas before Christmas? I do. My house is going to be all festooned the day after. The rectory will be festooned for Christmas the day after Thanksgiving, because, I just 2 weeks is not long. You're going to put all of this stuff up, and for 2 weeks, I don't think so. So I will have mine up next week, ready to go. This week, I guess it'll be the end of this week.
What do you mean by 2 weeks?
The 2 weeks of Christmas.
Oh. So you're not supposed to take everything down December 26th?
We can talk about that.
That is the bigger problem, and that's the bigger crime.
There we go. So yes, that's a good point. So when you decorate for Christmas, if you do anticipate that and you begin the decorating, or some people do it in stages. Like they will start the decorating and it just becomes a process throughout. Like they'll do a different room as each day goes on, or they'll add things, or it doesn't all have to be done boom like that. That would drive me nuts if it was half done and whatnot. So kind of all has to be done. But my thinking is that what this is doing is I am preparing my home for Christmas, and it's going to take longer to do that than just one day. So wherever your spirituality is. If you really want to enter into that Advent and do Advent in your home, and then maybe that's your Christmas Eve tradition, is Christmas Eve is the decorating, or the last Sunday of Advent is the decorating for now Christmas, that's beautiful and that's great. And then you keep your decorations up throughout the whole Christmas season until January 11th or 12th when the baptism of the Lord is celebrated. Or you begin early and you get everything kind of laid out and ready, and you prepare the way. In that case, I usually recommend to people, well, save something for Christmas. So maybe the nativity goes up those last days of Christmas, or leave the manger empty until Christmas Eve, and then the baby Jesus can be placed in the manger. So there are ways to make your house fair as you are able, trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today. Love, the guest is on the way. I like that little ditty.
I had a very funny thought.
Yes, sir.
As we were talking about all of this. getting home from, Christmas Eve Mass.
Yeah.
And that is when you finally turn on all your inflatables, the Tim Taylor, home improvement lights all over the house. And, it's a dark house all up until Christmas Eve. And then all of a sudden, Christmas
Boom.
Eve, hey, it's actually time to celebrate.
There's
Christmas.
another way to do it. Yeah, you could have everything up and not turn your lights on until that moment. However you do it. I don't know that there's a wrong way. In church, the nativity will not go up until Christmas itself. We will keep that spiritual focus there, and that's our goal, to help you as you get your house ready, however you get your house ready, because you work and you've got school and you've got things going on, and the worst thing is to stress over it. That's not the point.
And it's not the legalism, that we can get into. The whole purpose of Advent, of dressing the house up, whatever.
Yep.
You didn't say fumigate. Festooning your house is for the preparation of the coming of Christ. And so if that is what helps you get there, good for you. Go all out and do that.
There was an old English tradition of greening the house, where you would go out, and I forget what day this was traditionally done on, but you would go out and cut the evergreens and cut the branches to bring them into your home in preparation for Christmas. So there is a tradition in English Catholicism of decorating the house in advance of Christmas, because it's a process, and it's something that, again, process, soteriology, there's your word for the day, a process of salvation. So enter into that. So there's just, a few things in all of that. Most importantly, these externals are great, but what's going inside? Prayer and penance. Those are the best ways we get ready for Christmas.
Get to confession.
Find a time. Do your examination of conscience. I've got confession every day this month, or this coming month. So there's a time somewhere. So try to get to confession if you can. Certainly do penance. We don't think of Advent like Lent, where I'm going to take up a penance, but there's no reason why you can't. And so that would be a good thing to do. Abstain from something, give something up, take on something extra, a little extra prayer or whatnot. And I really do think prayer. What are we doing to pray? I think adoration is the best thing we can experience during Advent. Take a time to slow down, to pause, to be with the Lord, His incarnate presence in the tabernacle. Just, if you're not used to adoration, go in for 10 minutes. And just sit there with the tabernacle for 10 minutes. Read your scriptures for 10 minutes. Do something that invites the Word made flesh into your heart.
And at this parish, we have First Friday all-night adoration. Not this upcoming Friday after Thanksgiving, but the Friday after.
Yes.
So next week's Friday, we will have...
What a great way to kick off your Advent season, recognizing that Christ is there, right there. He is coming into the world. Present tense. All right, Jonathan, that's Advent. We're going to do some Thanksgiving stuff tomorrow. So you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye.